We're steering our vehicle over the windy roads of Cape Lookout. This is a road that's very familiar to me. For years, when I was a park ranger at Cape Lookout Park, I drove this road twice a day from our place completely over the Cape and down the other side through the sand dunes and through some logged off area above us and a lot of Douglas fir, hemlock, and spruce trees with a few alders as we wind our way up to the summit of Cape Lookout. We go past Anderson's viewpoint where we have an uninterrupted view of the Neatart sand spit, and also Cape Lookout Park is down below us. We move on up farther up the coast till we come to Cape Meares Park. And here we'll go down the trail until we come to the big spruce tree. That's our mission for the day, is to see the big spruce tree. We start down a tree-lined trail with some fairly good-sized spruce and hemlock at trail's edge. It's a pretty good trail, and I'm the one that helped make this trail back in my park ranger days. We found one of the people that worked at the park was an old man that was sort of a burned out logger, and he was a great beer drinker. And unbeknownst to us, he would come up this trail, up to this big tree and sat under and drink a little bit of beer on the times when he thought he could get away with it. Marge poses for a brief minute as she rests under the roots of a big tree. Probably this tree grew over what they call a mother log, a log that's fallen down and other trees come up in it, and then it has grown to maturity, and now it looks like it's rotten a bit. We move right on up the trail, and it's a pretty good trail.
Big spruce. The Sitka spruce was designated the state champion in 2008 for being the largest of its species in Oregon, standing 144 feet tall, 48 feet in circumference, and 15.5 feet in diameter. It is estimated to be 750 to 800 years old.
It is a real giant of a tree. It's when I was a park ranger, we measured it back in the 1970s, and apparently they've done it again in 2008. But it is a giant no matter how you go about it. In the Sitka spruce, there was a government spruce board during the war that went out and found spruce trees where they were logged and sawed into lumber. And this is a very lightweight, real tough wood. It rots pretty easily, so it can't be left where it would soak up water. But it was used in building airplanes. It was a real good wood for building the wood frames of airplanes. And this old giant survived the saws of the loggers during the war and lives on. At the time we originally measured this tree, it came in second. So it was a pretty big deal, but not as big as it is now, because there was one bigger up by Seaside, Oregon, and but later, after we'd measured it some period of time, I'm not sure when, it blew down, leaving this to be the largest tree in the state of Oregon and one of the older ones. There are flowers, brush, and a few little spruce trees coming up at trail's edge. I wonder if any of them will make a big tree like that. And then there's a wood sorrel covering the ground, and lots of sword fern and deer fern. After looking at the tree, we drive on down through Cape Meares Park, and we see some of the old structures that were part of the World War II war effort. Then we go down to the recently built lookout stand and see the three arch rocks. Each of these rocks have an arch in them, and the smaller rock that we're looking at in front of us, sort of a ramp shape, is where a colony of Steller sea lions live. And there's one bull there that's estimated to weigh over 2,000 pounds. Next, we decide to go up and see how the octopus tree's doing. I've heard that it lost one of its arms, and we get up there and look at it and confirm that's true. They've cut off some of the dead again. We did that once in the 70s, and they've done it probably several times since. And I hope they got it sealed off good. But we spent so much time looking at trees, the sun's beginning to sink down below the horizon. So we'll go on back to where we have some property to stay in. And then the next day, we're going up to Garibaldi to see the North Jetty of Tillamook Bar. Here's where I filmed that movie that's doing so well on YouTube, The Wreck of the Kilchis, right on Tillamook Bar. And this can be a pretty rough bar. It looks pretty good today, but don't let looks deceive you. A few small boats are heading out over the bar, but when they get out there, they find that it's much rougher than it looks, and so they choose to just go over and then turn around and come back. A fairly good choice, I would say. There are a few fishermen trying their luck on the rocks of the jetty, and there are all sorts of memorials for fishermen that have lost their lives on the bar here, and there have been numerous ones that have done that over the years. This is one of the dangerous bars to cross. It's a lot better now than it used to be since they've improved the jetties, but it still takes its share of commercial fishermen and sports fishermen alike. They're going out there and hitting a little bigger hump than they thought. And so here, one of them has decided, hey, that sea isn't for me. I'm going to go in where it's protected. And they can go in and do a little crabbing or a little fishing inside, although the fishing's not nearly as good as out over the bar. But here he comes for all he's worth, running in, and that following sea can be a real bearcat when you're coming in. So you need to have some knowledge of this bar and be extremely careful. And even at that, it takes its toll on fishermen. This is where the first Coast Guard was started in this area, and a guy named Finley would take to the surf in an open hand rowed dory boat like boat and go out and try to rescue some of the survivors of some of the shipwrecks that would wreck out here. And he had an awful time. One time his boat capsized and threw him into an ice cold break and surf and broke his leg, but he made it in and he established the Coast Guard. Now they have a very well organized Coast Guard here with very good motor lifeboats that if they roll them over, you just hang on. There's different places where you hook a seatbelt like contraption, and you just wait, and pretty soon it pops back up and you can go on. I didn't take time to test the water for myself because I forgot my fishing pole. But I'm watching these other guys, and they keep saying they have one on, and they crank and crank and crank on it, and it comes up with nothing. They think that the fish they're catching, they're not bringing it in fast enough, and they're swimming under the rocks and breaking their line. So I guess they'll have to stop by the fish market on the way home to buy a couple fish, just so when they get home, Mama won't think they hung out at a tavern or something. They're using frozen anchovies for bait, but they just plain don't seem to be doing too good. And so I really doubt that they caught a single fish, although we didn't stay too long. And north of the North Jetty of Tillamook Bar is Twin Rocks. That's off Rockaway Beach. And we can see the surf coming in on the beach side. And then uh, the swell's getting a little worse on the Tillamook Bar. So I think most all the small boats have gone in. And this seagull, he's too smart to go out and take a chance on capsizing. He's just going to sit there on one leg and let the wind blow his feathers. And here comes the last of the boats in. Well, now it's back to work again. We had a big oak tree drop a big limb in one of our rentals and broke the roof in. So we've got to get that tree out of there. There's where it came down from. It was a double tree and one half of it fell in. So we'll cut it out and get started with the work. So it's back to the salt mines and work again as we cut this giant oak tree out, and this is in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. The tree is being a little stubborn about coming out, but we'll hook on it with some things and get it out by and by. We had family members come by, and we're having a cleanup party in the backyard of our rental house where we're we're just about to get the logs out of the roof that caved in, and then we've got the big job of fixing the house back up again. But we'll get the yard cleaned up where I can mow the lawn and get some tarps back over the roof to protect it from the rains that are bound to come before we get it completely fixed.
Hey, Bob. I gotta go get my...
This chainsaw doesn't want to work anymore. It's done.
Oh.
So the cleanup goes on. We're fortunate enough to own a place with some of those rare old growth white oak trees that are about 200 years old. So there's some real precious trees. I just hope that no more of them decide to go down. But that ice storm just had so much weight on it that the trees just wouldn't stand the weight. So we'll clean it up and hope something like that doesn't happen again. We've owned this property for over 60 years, and this is the first time we've ever had a disaster like this.